coming on, because I really want them to hear what a profession in international.
Just briefly where we stand with the project at this time. So we are going into the last final week of the project. This week, the task, the deliverable is the full draft of the report. It has to be submitted by tomorrow to turn it in. So unlike the previous submissions that went directly into your weekly progress survey, this one has to be submitted separately in turn it in. And the reason for that is we want you to check your work for plagiarism before the project is over, before you submit the final work. And so when you will submit it to turn it in, it may take a couple of hours for the plagiarism report to be generated. But eventually the one person who will be submitting the report on behalf of your team will be able to see, and if needed, download and share with the team, the plagiarism report. And it will show you two things. One, it will show you so-called similarity statistics. So basically we'll give you one number that shows what percentage of your report has been copied and pasted off the internet. And usually some, for example, legitimately cited quotes, some maybe extracts from existing materials are acceptable. So therefore, usually we say if it's up to 20%, it's okay. It's not a problem. In fact, less than 10 is very unusual. Up to 20 is acceptable. We get nervous only when it's more like 25 and up. At that stage, we know that about a quarter of your report has been copied and pasted, and that's probably not okay. Even if some of that is properly cited materials, properly quoted materials, it's still a little too much for the report. So, but in any case, you will see that number, and you will also, when you open the file itself, you will see the sections, the parts that have been copied and pasted. It will literally show you which sentences or paragraphs or maybe even pages have been copied and pasted and where from. And so when that happens, or if that happens, you have a whole week to fix the problem. So don't panic, don't worry. You're not going to be penalized for it at this time, as long as you as a team fix the problem. So what happens sometimes is that, let's say there are 7 people on the team and 6 of them work honestly and diligently and have written whatever parts they were assigned to write, but maybe one team member hasn't been so honest, or maybe, decided to save some time and maybe copied some parts of the internet, and you don't even know. Once you submit the report, you will know now, and you can then talk to the student and either ask the student to redo his or her work or help as a team. Usually the excuse that we see or hear is more, oh, my English is not so good, and I thought since I found good stuff online, why use my broken English when I can copy and paste somebody's better work? But that's the whole problem. So you will have about a week to fix the problem. Sometimes people also ask, can we submit and check our work for plagiarism several times? You can, but in that case, you'll need to create a separate account and another team member would need to submit the work. Plus, remember, turn it in will think that it's a new submission copied of the first one and will mark the whole thing as plagiarism. So you'll need to then disregard the total number and look specifically at the sections. We know about this problem. We know that when people submit the same report twice, it usually thinks that you plagiarized your whole work twice. We fix the number later on, so there is a way to correct for that. But for now, for you, it will be more useful to look at the actual sections rather than the total. Then once you submit the draft this week, next week, the submission, the deadline, the deliverable is the final report. That one will be submitted also via Turnitin. For that one, we will not give you the plagiarism statistics because at that point you will not be able to fix it anyway, and we don't want you to be too much worried. So usually no news is good news. If there is a problem, we will contact you, otherwise all good. And we will share those numbers though with your teachers, professors, so you know that we are checking it. We just don't share it with the team at that point. And then you will allow us probably another week or two to evaluate your work. So each professor will be evaluating a stack of reports. The coaches will be helping. So it may take us probably more like 2 weeks. And at that point, we will be able or ready to announce the winners of the competition, which will happen sometime in mid-December. Likewise, once we have all of the numbers, all of the evaluations, once we've announced the winners, sometime closer to Christmas, you will get your certificates, you will get your recommendation letters, and basically it will be the end of the semester for you. If you are an academy student, so a student in the non-university track, you will have to do two more things. One, you will need to do a video presentation of your work, and two, there will be we call it a roundtable experience sharing webinar. So there will be a webinar where we all will talk about our experiences, how things went for us, what we learned, what we would do differently. So again, you're very much welcome to participate in those presentations and experience sharing webinars. Plus, you will be also required to write a quick short paper, again, a reflection paper where you talk about how things went for you this semester, what you learned. You have all of that in the instructions. For the university students, we do not require video presentations or experience sharing webinars, because those are organized by teachers, by professors. So for example, for my students, we will have a separate meeting, one of our lectures, where we will have an experience sharing session. And then I will not do the presentation because it's a large class, but for those professors who teach smaller classes, usually they ask students to present in class. But the university students are also allowed, so welcome as an option, to submit their presentations, record the presentation and submit it as a pre-recorded video or link to a video to us. We will look at those submissions both from students and from teenagers, but also from professionals, and select the few best. Last semester, if I remember correctly, we had 6, and then organize a kind of bigger presentation event where the best teams will present live to the clients. So in other words, all non-university teams have to do a recorded presentation. University teams are most welcome to do a recorded presentation. The best teams based on those recordings will be presenting live, but everybody who does it as a recording or as a live presentation later on will have that commented on in your recommendation letters. So I strongly encourage you to spend the time to try to record the presentation, because it's a useful skill. Once you have your jobs, especially now with the pandemic and everything, you will be doing a lot of online presentations. It's now an inevitable part of our, life, workplace. And so if you do it online now, not only you will learn the valuable skills, but you also will have that on your resume, in your recommendation letter, and that will make you look a little bit better, sort of more attractive as an employer when you will be applying for jobs. At least you will be able to say that you've done it before, while many people maybe haven't. And so I encourage you to spend that time. And in your case, it's not only an online presentation, it's an online presentation with people from several different countries. So I totally recommend that you do it, even if it's not required for you. Other than that, I think that will conclude the semester. And so hopefully everything will go smoothly in this last final months with all the presentations and webinars. But yeah, it should be fine. And Dr. B, I don't know, did I miss any elements, anything else?
No, I have a couple of things to add. You didn't miss anything, but I think that this would help. Just remember that everybody has access to their coaches. And for those of you guys who have yet to really reach out to your coach, remember that coaches are students who actually went through the virtual process and know in detail what specifics you have questions for. Not only that, but they have weekly meetings where they actually share with each other some best practices. So don't be afraid to reach out to your coach. And also, maybe have them take a look at your final product, just so that you can get a sense of, okay, is this good enough? Do I need to do something else? And actually, I'd like to invite maybe Raphael. Raphael, are you there? I know Annette is here. Just to kind of share with you what they can do for you. So I'll invite Raphael for that. But one last thing, and this is still in the works. We are actually putting together our, let's call it our end of semester celebration. We haven't yet finalized the details of it, but the idea is it's basically holidays around the globe, and it is a celebration from around the globe. There's going to be prizes for that. People are invited to wear their national clothes. So just
we haven't done it in the past. I like the idea. This is a very good idea. Yeah.
So we're still in the process of planning that. but it will, of course, it will be virtual, but I think that it's a great opportunity for us to close the session in a way, celebrating our own customs and traditions. So let me bring Raphael, if you could just talk to the students and let them know what you're available to help with, and then we'll pass the screen to Chris.
Sure, sure. Hello, my name is Rafael, and I'm the coach coordinator for X-Culture Academy. Nice to meet you all. And nice to meet you, Chris. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Pleasure.
I want to talk about the coaching program, as today we have 24 coaches to help us with the X-Culture Academy. So you are free to contact any coach to help you out to improve or do your reports. And also, if you need anything else, you can contact me regarding admin or anything. So feel free to contact your coach and then also me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Raphael. Again, if you just need basic advice, or if you, and this is not just for Academy, the virtual
For
class for
everyone.
university students also have coaches, okay? But the idea is that I want everybody to feel confident that they have done their best. And if you don't feel confident about something, reach out to your coach. That's why they're there. And these guys really are experts as a coach because they've done it. They've gone through the process, some of them 2 or 3 times. So
Plus,
this is
they've been
great
trained in
opportunity.
how to provide feedback,
Yes,
resolve conflicts, which can
yes,
happen in
yeah.
these late days.
Yeah. And not only
Yeah.
that, you're giving them the opportunity to exercise their leadership that they've been trained for. Okay? Raphael, you
And
have something to add?
yes, we also have still 1 week to work. So we have time to get back. If you miss anything, you can still work and improve your report.
Okay. Thank you, Raphael. Okay, so without further ado, I want to introduce to you one of my very good friends. Mr. Chris Mangos is the Director of Marketing for Miami International Airport. Chris and I have been friends for many, many years, and I just know so much about his work and how he contributes in the daily lives of people that he works with. And I really thought that he was a great speaker for you to listen from, because he can teach you how you can build a career for yourself and really create a life for yourself with whatever education you have in the background. Because even Chris will tell you that he did not go to school to be a marketing director, but here he is anyway. He's negotiating deals with organizations like Lufthansa, large airlines coming in and out of Miami International Airport. And when I tell you he's negotiating deals, he's talking to CEOs, CFOs, COOs of these large corporations. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to my very good friend, Mr. Chris Mangos.
Thank you, Dr. B, Dr. Taras. Thank you all for asking me to be here today. It's a pleasure. Good morning to those of us on this side of the Atlantic. Good afternoon to those on the other side of the Atlantic. I see we have a very good spread of African, and I believe we have, I don't know if we have anybody European, but we have Brazil and we have the USA, and how more global can that be? I was asked to speak today, and in putting my notes together for my presentation to you all today, there is a lot of, obviously, we'll be talking about my background, my reflections, but as I put this together, I also saw, well, what brought you to where you are today, Chris? I mean, and go back to when you were a senior in high school, looking to get into college, and what derived from that were tips. Some of those tips were inherent in me to follow through on them, and some of them were knocks on the head and said, you should have done this, or if you could do it all again, do that. So as I speak to you all this morning, afternoon, let's say today, I'm going to be calling out and saying tip number 1, tip number 2. If you got something to write it down, or if you can remember it all, There are things that are going to guide you through your education, through your career selection process, and ultimately towards a fulfilling career in international arena in your lives. So let's start with me. A little bit about my personal background. I was born and raised in Boston, Massachusetts. I went through high school there. I actually went to university just south of Boston, and I graduated with a bachelor's in both liberal arts and in Spanish. During my junior year of college, I was an exchange student and went to a program in a college in Spain. Got to live there, got the experience of living in another country, though I have an international background in that both my mother and late mother and father were immigrants from Greece. So I have also an inclination towards foreign languages. I am fluent, obviously, in English, Greek, Spanish. I'm conversational in Portuguese, Italian, and I know quite a bit of French, but I wouldn't call myself fluent by any means. I also pursued a secondary education minor in my university years because the intent was that I always wanted to teach, and I wanted to teach at the college level. So my plans were initially graduate from college, get a master's degree, and then pursue getting into a college or university in the Boston area. That's your career, Chris. That's what you want to do. Life changes, life throws a lot of things at you. It was by chance that I came across an opportunity for an internship while I was in college, and the internship was at the airport in Boston. I applied. You needed to have multilingual capabilities, which I did. I was hired, and I did almost 2 full years of the internship because I got in for a second year, and it was a life-changing experience for me, simply because all of a sudden I was in an environment that was very different from a classroom. It was an industry that was very different from education. I've always loved airplanes and flying, but then the airport itself, the embodiment of the airport and the whole experience there, the international part of the airport, all of that intrigued me. Come to find out that as I was graduating from college, the airport authority in Boston made me an offer to stay on permanently. And that became my new career. And teaching fell to the side. It's not that I didn't and don't to this day love teaching, but this was a very exciting career for me, and it really got to me that there was a vast area of knowledge and experience that I was going to be exposed to. It was something that was going to be renewable. Aviation industry is very dynamic. There are constant changes taking place, and it was just something that I was taking in and said, this is where you need to be, Chris. So ultimately, I would wind up staying a total of 9 years at the airport in Boston. And a couple of things happen as as the years go by. Your likes and dislikes change. The older I got, the more I disliked the long, cold, brutal winters of Boston. I had traveled to Florida and saw a world of color, simply because there's so much sunshine, there's so much growth, and natural growth and green and trees and palm trees. And I said, maybe you should consider a change in your life. So there was an opportunity for a job at Miami International Airport. I moved to Florida before I even got the airport job. And lo and behold, I was interviewed and got this job. It was very different. I had applied and thought I would give it a shot, and it was for a media relations officer in the public relations office at MIA. I had never done media relations, but I think I knew enough about the industry, and I was verbose in terms of being able to talk myself anything I wanted to say about how an airport operates, how airlines operate. I had 9 years behind me. And lo and behold, I was offered the job. And it was pretty much, and I was told afterwards that it was not based on my experience of the airport environment, but so much what they called exceptional communications and writing skills. I had to take written courses. I had to get myself interviewed with a camera, how I spoke and what I said. So here comes tip number 1. Whatever it is that you plan on pursuing in college, in the university setting, make sure make sure that you pursue speaking, at least one speaking and one writing course, if not more. It is critical, no matter what you wind up doing for a living in your lifetime, that you have the ability to effectively communicate both orally and in writing. And it's beside the point that Dr. Terrace was just talking about, being able to cut and paste. We live in a cut and paste world, and we can use someone else's words. Ultimately, the one-on-one experience, human being to human being, dictates that you need to get your word and your thought across. And it certainly helps you in any career choice that you have as you go along. So let's take us back to my initial years at Miami International Airport. It wasn't too long after I got into the communications world and started dealing with media relations and doing interviews and writing speeches and writing white papers on industry changes, that I was asked to join a team that was going to create a brand new division called marketing. And the purpose of that was to separate the public relations functions from the business development and promotion functions. So I did a lot of research with an organization in Washington that I belong to, Airports Council International. We were able to put together an outline for this new division, what its responsibilities would be. It was created, and then after that, I was asked to actually go over and head this new division. And it's changed over the years. My move over to marketing saw that looking at best practices of airports around the world and what they were doing. Again, the industry changes, the needs of the airport change. And I realized that marketing needed to do even more. And that's where we started thinking beyond, and I did a lot of research and actually took a course in England, in Manchester, England, on air service development. Something that many years ago didn't exist, where airports were actually the ones putting together route studies, case studies, and going before US airlines and foreign airlines around the world to try to show them, to convince them that they should establish a route or expand their routes to your airport. So a lot of R&D went into that. I put a position paper together. I presented it to the CEO of the airport, and it was accepted. And of course, what came with that was obviously a lot more responsibilities themselves. But so now I and my team were responsible for passenger development through promotion, cargo development through promotion, and air service development, which I was, and to the most part, still tackle by myself. How successful were we? Initially, we were new kids on the block. We are an airport that was formed in 1928. However, we had put together research that was clearly not being as effective. There was a lot of tweaking that was involved. So one of the things that you come to realize also in your job is that many times the job isn't what you think it is or expect it to be. Is there room for you to make those changes? And those are things that, you know, we battled over for many, I want to say at least 2-3 years, until we finally got ourselves into a situation where we started seeing success from our program. And how successful has it been? Well, since 2005, when the program really started kicking in full gear, as we say, we have been able to attract 36 new airlines to our airport and created over 40 new domestic and international routes. We consider it a success. I consider it a success. I personally feel very good every time I am able to announce to our CEO and ultimately to our airport operating body that a new airline is coming or a new route is being created in the process. It took a lot of stepping out of my responsibilities and comfort zone to do that. And I realized that I had created this opportunity. I needed to see it through. So tip number 3, wherever you are, as a student, as an intern, as a new entry employee, or even a CEO of a corporation someday, clearly don't let dust gather on you. It's part of our nature, or should be part of our nature, to take a chance. Give your ideas an opportunity to flourish. Go back and clean up when you have to, but move forward. And you realize that it's not only beneficial to your career, obviously, but there is a lot of self-satisfaction in saying, I have not given up, I'm moving this forward. And if their obstacles can be overcome, there is great success and great personal satisfaction from that. So let's talk about my airport and the big numbers, as I call them. We're called Miami International Airport, and as I tell many people, the middle name, International, is more than just a name. It's a significant part of our business. When you look at our rankings in the United States, we are number 3 in international passenger traffic. Number 1 is New York's JFK, number 2 is Los Angeles, and number 3 is Miami International Airport. And again, that's in international passengers, not total passengers. When you look at cargo, we're actually number 1 in the United States. We're actually number 1 in the entire Western Hemisphere in terms of our international cargo tonnage that flows through our airport on an annual basis. Economic impact, very important. Airports are great economic stimulators and generators of direct and indirect employment. For us, Miami International Airport, and we're looking at 2019 numbers. As I reflect through this presentation, we're not going to talk about 2020 because I think we're all going to ultimately write off this year at the end of the day, because and we'll talk more about the pandemic later on in my presentation. But economic impact of our airport is 32 billion. That's billion with a B, dollars per year. That makes us the largest economic generator in the entire state of Florida. And if you know geographically how big Florida is, it's one of the largest states in land area. It's also one of the largest in population. There are better than 21 million Floridians who call our state home. And this airport that you see behind me is the largest economic generator in the entire state. We're bigger than Disney, if that's something comparable that can fit within your thought process here. We are responsible for 280,000 jobs directly and indirectly through the activities that are conducted at our airport. And as a large, and we mentioned our stature as a cargo airport, and cargo is ultimately imports and exports, the value of that cargo is in 2019 dollars, $58 billion themselves. So you can see our imports and exports actually are even more in value than the total output of the airport at 32 billion a year. It is a big responsibility to be in a position at the airport, in a leading position when so much is at stake. And you realize that, and you carry that with you every day, that when you succeed in what you're doing, it means to the benefit of not only the airport itself, but the local community, to the region. And in some ways, it has resounding economic impact throughout the entire state of Florida. Air service levels, prior to COVID-19, we were at 102 passenger and cargo airlines, more airlines than any airport in the United States. We are the largest gateway to Latin America and the Caribbean. We have 57 destinations that we serve in North America, 26 destinations in Europe and the Middle East Gulf region, and 3 destinations in Asia and 2 in Africa. And we hope that when things return back to normal for the entire planet, that our quest in Asia and in Africa continues to grow those numbers there as well. A little bit about passenger activity. In 2019, we handled 46 million passengers that year. Interestingly enough, here's that international number. 49% of our traffic was international. That's the highest ratio of international traffic to total traffic of any airport in the United States. The only one who comes close to us in that respect is John F. Kennedy Airport in New York. 43% of our traffic is connecting. What does that mean? Passengers on those airplanes that are coming in and out of MIA are not originating or destined for Miami. They're actually connecting through our airport. We're a mega hub airport. That's not a boasting term, that is an industry term. A mega hub airport for connectivity of people. Who are those people? Who's sitting next to you on that airplane, wherever you're flying? Well, there's different breakdowns of traffic, and we're going to call those passengers traffic now. There's the leisure traffic component. It's local and regional tourism. And as you know, and if you know anything about Miami, tourism is one of our top two industries. International trade is the other, but tourism is way up there. Everybody knows about the sun, the beaches, South Beach, the good restaurants, the nightlife, the beautiful people. Those of us that are not on the beach and have to work every day, but you know, there are a lot of beautiful people out there that are in our community, and tourism is a big business. And as you might imagine, it's suffering right now. We are also a big provider of passengers to the Port of Miami. The Port of Miami is the largest cruise port in the world. And as you know, seaports are suffering even more than airports are, simply because the cruise industry has come to a halt. Because of COVID, because of the confinements of the environment on a ship, and it's made global news in terms of ships that became sick ships with passengers on board in the hundreds with COVID, that the industry has come to a standstill. But normally, we provide upwards of 55 to 60% of the passengers who are flying into Miami and wind up at the seaport to get on one of the cruise ships there. Another component of the traffic is business traffic. And that's a very important component because business class passengers, if they're flying in that class on the airplane, are paying big money for the comfort and the services that are on board. But business traffic is also very important for us as an international community. Remember, I said international trade is our number 2 business in this community, international commerce, and that's a whole grouping of industries that belong to that. But just to give you an idea, who's coming here and why to conduct business? Well, the metropolitan Miami area is home to over 1,000 multinational companies that operate here. They can be one office, they can be an entire building, but there's over 1,000 of them here. International banking, commerce, trade, strategic location of Miami dictates, and the access that our airport offers to South America, Central America, North America, and even from Asia and Europe, and not yet Africa, but we're working on that, dictates that regional headquarters of these international corporations set up offices in Miami to conduct business with neighboring countries, with South America. There is better access from Miami to all of South America than there is access within the South American countries. So a lot of people are flying to our community simply to conduct business themselves. 65% of our population is foreign born. An incredible statistic when you stop and think about 2.7 million of us in the greater Miami area, and 65% of the population is foreign born. Nearly 70, that's 70 languages are spoken. Spanish is our number 2 language. Brazilian Portuguese is number 3. And yes, we do speak English in Miami, contrary to many beliefs. All in all, as you can imagine, this business is conducted in a very big cross-cultural environment that is here representing the entire Western Hemisphere and representation from basically all the other continents as well. It is a fallacy that many times in other countries we have to dispel that in Florida, in Miami in particular, none of us work. We just get up every day and we go to the beach. It is very surprising to them to be able to show them, and I'll talk to you more about what we need to prove or what we need to say when we are looking to create new business opportunities in our community, about the serious side of South Florida, the side that is the tourism side, the international trade and commerce side, the cross-cultural attributes that exist here. And basically, there are more tourists lying on the beach and having cocktails on South Beach than there are those of us that, you know, actually get up every morning and have to go to work. A final component of our traffic, our passenger traffic, is called VFR, Visiting Friends and Relatives. And as you might imagine, with the population base of being 65% foreign born, they have relatives that are all over the world. Those relatives are coming to visit other relatives and friends. There are many that have purchased properties here. Germany, Italy, Spain, to a lesser degree, the United Kingdom. There are many citizens who have purchased second homes here or third homes here. South America, even more so. So many citizens from South America and even Central America and the Caribbean have second or third homes here. So you have all that VFR traffic, which is significant for us as well. And by the way, in the pandemic right now, 90% of the traffic that we are seeing in our passenger airplanes is VFR. Business has come to a standstill. We're Zooming and we're teaming to conduct business, and tourism has drastically reduced because of COVID as well. So VFR is actually the smallest of the components, is now become the largest component of our passenger activity traffic. Cargo. In 2019, the airport handled 2.2 million tons of cargo, a huge volume, more so than any other airport in the United States. And the international component there, again, that word international, is 87%. It's an astronomically high percentage for any airport to have 87% of its tonnage be international itself. We have 38 all-cargo airlines, a unique attribute and a contributor to that kind of activity. Excuse me. Cargo flows and connections, consolidation, in transit, all kinds of terminology that belongs in that cargo world. It's not just consumer driven goods. It's not what I need or want to buy. It's also the ability for all these commodities, for all these goods to connect through Miami and go on to other states in the United States, or they are in transit. In transit meaning that they are coming from one country, going to another through Miami International Airport, or consolidation. Bits and pieces of goods and commodities are arriving from different places, destined to one place. Cargo handling companies are consolidating all these shipments and putting them on airplanes that are going ultimately to wherever they're going. There could be a flight that's going to Brazil that has commodities on it from the United States, from Europe, from Asia. All of this is through the consolidation process. So as you might imagine, it's a lot of labor, but it's also a big employment driver, and it's a big business when you consider about freight forwarders, who are the travel agents of cargo, the federal agencies that are inspecting and ensuring that all business is legitimate that's coming through our airport, and those commodities are legitimate, looking for pests in products to assure that no foreign pests are introduced to our environment. It is a whole chain of people involved in the movement of these goods themselves. So what are the products and commodities that are flowing through? A little bit about that. Our number one product in volume is perishable products. And what are those? Flowers. We're the flower capital importer in the entire Western Hemisphere. Flowers coming in primarily from South America, Europe, and also making their way from Africa, from Kenya and Ethiopia. We are seeing flower imports from the Netherlands, Ecuador, Colombia, Costa Rica to some extent. Those are the big providers of floral imports in Miami. Fruits and vegetables, primarily from South America, seasonal. And that gives us the opportunity in opposite growing seasons in the Northern Hemisphere and Southern Hemisphere as consumers to find what we want in the fruits and vegetable selections year round. When I was very, very young, many years ago, there were things that were called seasonal fruits, and that meant that you could only purchase them during a certain time of the year. Today, obviously, Agriculture has improved, the transportation process has improved, the supply chain has improved, and we can get that strawberry all year long in our markets wherever we shop. Fish and seafood, of course, all kinds of fish from the Atlantic side of South America and the Pacific side of South America and Central America, and seafood as well. High technology is by far the largest contributor in terms of the value of our trade. Remember the import-export in that $58 billion. High technology contributes a large portion to that. And what is high technology? It's computers, it's peripherals, it's computer chips, telecommunications equipment, including televisions, telephones, satellite equipment, all of that is flowing through the continents and through our airport. Aerospace and aircraft parts, in better aviation days, that number was thriving. I understand that it's probably not going to be that good for 2020, but not much has been. And our rising star of the commodities is pharmaceuticals, or as we call it in the industry, pharma. As you might imagine, in the early days of COVID and continuing through this day, PPEs, or personal protection equipment, from your masks to syringes to everything else that was needed to combat COVID, or at least keep us safe from COVID, was flying in by the thousands of tons on a daily basis. Grounded passenger airplanes were being used to fly cargo routes for the demand that was created. So inside those seats you and I sit on, there were no passengers, there were boxes attached to those seats for the rush that was created. What's going to also happen, obviously, is with the announcement of a vaccine by one company, and perhaps a second and perhaps a third announcement coming by 3 top companies that are very much working towards bringing that vaccine to us as soon as possible, is also going to create an incredible amount of flying. And we are preparing our airport. We have put a task force together inside the airport and outside as well to cover the gamut of the supply chain process, meaning from where that vaccine is going to be created, packaged, shipped, sent to our airport, and then onto distribution channels, be it in South America, or be it down the street from here, or be it in some part of the United States where it'll be coming in. And there's a whole set of challenges associated with bringing something that is so critical, so expensive, and needs to be transported at sub-freezing temperatures during the whole process. So that's challenge there, but again, pharma is something that we're seeing growing. In 2019, it was about $3.6 billion worth of business just for our airport alone. One of the things, and as people say, well, how do I get into the airport? Well, getting into the airport or an airport is, typically it's getting into a government job. There is some level of government that owns or controls airports. I am a local county government employee. Miami-Dade County owns and operates the airport itself. So there are opportunities for airlines, there are opportunities for the literally hundreds of companies and operators that are on our airport as well. However, one of the things that airports do is, and we talked about the economic impact and job creation, is the support industries that are either created or created around what aviation does for a community. And that is jobs in hospitality, jobs in transportation, in logistics themselves, and logistics related to the passenger end of the business. These are all things that, again, they can be Googled. In this world of Google, you can go in there and see just what's happening out there. What are the projections for job creation, assuming that at some point in time in the near future, we're going to resume to some level of normalcy. In trade, there is the warehousing and distribution aspect of it, which, by the way, is more and more high technology is being incorporated into the warehouse environment as well. In the handling of goods and commodities, high tech is clearly coming in there in order to improve the supply chain process. of moving an article from its point of origin to the consumer themselves. In Miami, as in other large trade communities, there's also trade finance. Lots of international banks that are here financing the movement of trade itself. There's trade law. There are at least 3 or 4 large law firms in Miami itself. It's very much true in other big trade communities where attorneys and corporations are working together to mitigate situations that occur in the movement of trade, following trade law at the national and international level. And if you're in the process of, or your company is moving hundreds of millions of dollars worth of pharmaceuticals, fish, have you seen the price of fish? You see that it is a high price commodity as well. It behooves your company to hire a trade attorney to assure that everything is legally being handled. And when problems occur, that an attorney can be there to litigate, mitigate, whatever it might be, your particular business interests. So at this point in time, you're probably saying, and others have said, how do you remember all this? How do you do this? Well, it's important to remember all of this. I chose to work in an environment that is very multifaceted, that is ever changing. The components are in the hundreds, if not thousands, and you need to, clearly do this. But, in speaking with friends that I have, other people in other industries themselves, it's not much difference. My world is not any larger, greater, or more significant than anybody else's out there and what they do for a living themselves. So, as you branch out into the working world, whether it's your first job or whether you've reached the CEO level of a company, tip number 4 for you: learn your business, every aspect of it. It's not just someone else's responsibility to know something. I know this much, and this one knows this much, and this. Learn it all. It's all your responsibility as well. It's a motto of mine. I know every aspect of the operation of this airport that I work for. I know what needs to be done, and even though it might not be my responsibility, I know it. And it's very important to know it, to become the well-rounded person, the person that has the knowledge in there. And when you learn it all, start relearning it, because we live in a world where things are changing overnight. And there are too many of us that get fixated, especially the older generation, the non-high-tech generation. And Dr. B is smiling, I see her smiling. We tend to think that what we've learned is all there is. And you come to realize that you wake up tomorrow and so much of the world has changed. Keep current in your business and in your industry. And finally, that will make you an invaluable asset wherever it is that you learn. I'd like to take you now on what I call the Air Service Development Experience. Take a few minutes to talk about that. That's an important part of what I do.
Can I just ask you, hold on a second, Chris, because I think this actually adds to what you just said, and it gives you an opportunity to take a sip. So Michalina Kisoi wanted to know what specific skills does she need to actually work in an airport? So I want to give her one answer and then I'm going to pass it to you, okay? Because I'm assuming that, Michalina, that you're a young person. I think love of travel, if you want to work at an airport, love of travel has to be one of them, right? And probably if you're a young person, try to get a job that will actually give you the opportunity to travel, whether it's working for an airlines, or working for the airport itself and then having the opportunity to travel for the airport. But I think the second thing you need to know is our languages. I think languages are so critical for that industry. Just a quick story, when I was a soldier in the United States Army coming back from basic training from Columbia, South Carolina, I stopped in Atlanta, Georgia, which is one of the major hubs in the United States. And going up to check in at the desk, the customer service representative that was there was talking to a group of people, and she switched from, in literally 30 seconds, okay? She switched from Spanish to Italian to Greek to English to French. And I thought, oh my God, I want to be her. So I think having the skills to communicate with other people in other languages, and then to be able to convey and express yourself and your thoughts in a clear way is such a talent that is priceless. But then also going back to all of those specific skills that Chris talked about, I think those are really critical in working for an airport. So do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, actually, I would definitely prepare myself the way you just said, Dr. B. Languages are very important. Love of the travel industry and the overall industry itself. Breaking into an airport, it's very difficult to be in another industry at a certain level and come into that at the airport level. So, and none of us are really hired and brought into upper management positions when we're fresh out of school. We obviously know we start a certain level. Remember, I got into Miami International Airport based on two things, and one was my foreign language and communication skills, and ultimately that I did have 9 years of operational experience from another airport. So breaking into an airport, I don't mean as in stealing, I mean breaking into an airport itself at an employment level will require you basically to look at basic operational job entry opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Get into, we have, our airport's divided into 3 operational areas: airside, which you're looking at right now; terminal, which is that building or one of several buildings; and landside operations, what happens on the street side of the airport itself. Getting into one of the operational areas of an airport is critical. You need to understand the dynamics of what makes an airport work. And then you can move on to there. Now, there are entry-level positions in other areas as well. As you know, we have our own legal department with attorneys. We have a 85-person financial department because of a $1 billion operating budget that this airport has on an annual basis. Money coming in from everywhere, but money going out everywhere on a daily basis. So there's the finance side of it as well. And then, you know, entry-level positions in other divisions, smaller divisions as well. But basically, if your heart is, I want to work for an airport, seek out an entry-level position in an operational area at your airport and see how you can get in there and start following those tips I gave you on learning everything and showing the enthusiasm.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
Yep, we're gonna run out of time, so I just want to give you like a heads up, right? It's
Okay.
9:52 Eastern Standard Time. We
Okay.
probably have a good solid 5 minutes. So
Okay. So, all right. So we'll get into the air service development experience. I want to talk to you about that because that pretty much encapsulates everything that I've been talking about before. What is air service development? And that is an airport going out there and trying to attract a new airline or create a new route. And how do we do it? Market research. I hated math since I was a little boy. Numbers are inevitable, people. Analysis and basic math skills are absolutely necessary, whether you like it or not. And I didn't. And I came to the point in my life where I realized that analyses and formal analyses was going to be part of my job, and I needed to brush up on that area. We target a route. We look at a market opportunity and we see numbers growing. We target an airline in that country. We get an appointment with the airlines at their headquarters, and then I need to pack. And here's what I pack when I go. We're not talking about the blue suit and the red tie. It is the knowledge of everything that my community and my airport is. Everything we've talked about, I need to pack it with me. I need to bring it with me. I am going to, in most instances, another country where they speak another language. There is another culture, and there is a business etiquette. It behooves you, if you're doing business in another country, to try to understand what is proper business etiquette. Everything from meeting a person and bowing to them versus shaking a hand, presentation of a business card. How do you sit during, your presentation? What's your voice level? I'm not screaming at you. I'm just speaking at a tone where you can hear me and understand me. All of those things come into play. Present the attributes of your community. Everything that I just told you about Greater Miami, I need to be able to present that and project that to you to give you an understanding. And if you know it already, fine, but Chris is there to tell you, this is what's dynamic. This is what's fantastic about Miami. Why should your airline fly to Miami? That's the whole reason why I'm there. The attributes of our airport, how the world converges, the whole world converges in and on my airport. And I take possession many times and just don't put it out there as that airport or that airport. It's my airport, and I want to welcome you to it. What I'm talking to you about now has applicability to anything that you go out there and do. And this is enthusiasm. This is projecting yourself and showing positive energy. Very, very important, very well received. Not all individuals across the table are going to behave similarly. I've had some fantastic experiences at the first meeting, and I've had some really bad experiences in the first meeting. And of course, we're not all the same, are we? But we do it, and I'm there to project Miami. I am Mr. MIA at that moment, and I take a lot of pride in doing that. Why? And as in any business, you can't sell what you yourself won't buy. Remember that. Very, very important. Okay. So tip number 5, and the final tip for today: do what you love so you can love what you do. Very, very important to find yourself, whether it's through the first or second job like me. Amazing that I have worked now for 41 years in only 2 places, because I simply love what I do and where I am. Find, explore, test, and ask yourself if your work is fulfilling and makes you happy. All the money in the world is not going to make you happy through a lifetime of a career. You don't have to settle for poverty level in your career choices, but understand that money is secondary to self-fulfillment and happiness on the job. So my final chapter, my final section is, we'll talk a little bit about the pandemic, and I call it, and along comes a pandemic called COVID-19. We were running at an average of about 120,000 passengers a day. By late March, we were down to 3,000 passengers a day. That's a minus 98% drop in passenger traffic. Our airlines retreated. Some of them went away. Many of them went away. Borders closed, as you all know. And it became obvious that the need to build confidence was very important to the traveling public, that the environment they were coming into was a safe one. The very first time I've seen so much cooperation between airports and airlines. Usually there is a little bit of an adversarial relationship in there. Safety, cleanliness, social distancing, providing the vitals, restrooms, restaurants, distancing in those areas, the cleanliness, everything had to be completely changed in order for us to get some of our business back and get those people who need to fly or want to fly reassurance that they're in a safe environment. We're up to about 48 to 50,000 passengers per day right now. That's the average. But it's growing ever so slowly. And now we're dealing with a resurge of COVID around the corner and around the world. And I don't know what that's going to do to our business as we move into the holiday season. Cargo did a lot better, as you might imagine, and I mentioned that before. There are things in cargo that we must have no matter what's happening on our planet, and that's food, personal protection equipment, pharmaceuticals, and yes, for that younger generation, even the iPhone 12. It comes from Asia through this airport, and you all want it, and we're making sure you're going to get it. It's coming through. With talk of returning to 2019 levels in 2023, or later, if we continue to see COVID go into the better part of 2021. So what I'm doing right now is we're working with our airlines, welcoming those who've chosen to come back, those airlines. I am working with a consulting firm right now, preparing a strategic plan so that when travel is clearly open again and conditions permit, I will be on the road. And only this time it will not be air service development, we're coining it air service redevelopment. And we have no choice but to do what we're doing and get our business back as soon as it is safe and viable to do so. So tip number 6 and the final one of the day. When we fall, as one or as many, we stand up, we regroup, we take inventory, and we move forward. And I hope you're all thinking the same, whether you're in high school or college. A celebrated professor like Dr. B over there. Chris, this marketing guy from MIA, it's a challenging time in history, but I think we have no choice but to pick ourselves back up and move forward in life, in every aspect of life. So I thank you for your time today. I thank you for those of you who got up very early, those of you who were in the latter part of the day, for listening to me for this last hour, and it's been my pleasure to address you. So Dr. B, back to you.
So I just want to give you a comment here, and this is all caps with 3 exclamation point from Dr. Voss. He's run off to a 10 o'clock meeting, but he says, excellent talk. I wish I had access to people like this when I was in high school. And it's really true, you guys. I mean, X Culture is giving you guys access to people from all over the world who can influence you in really becoming, you know, the best versions of yourself and opening up your eyes to the opportunities that are open to you. Because we are a global community now, and I think for the most part, it's telling too, right? Now that the world is becoming smaller per se, based on our communications access with the internet, and then based on our travel access with the airlines and the ships, right? The challenge I think that we find is we can't visualize it, like how we fit into that, and I think that by giving people or inviting people like you to communicate with our kids at this early stage in their lives really then creates a new paradigm in their minds of, oh, I don't have to ask how can I have to ask the other questions, which is what Michalina asked, is how do I? And I really like that, in a sense that we give so much. And I know, Chris, your dream is to be a teacher. It's your lifelong dream. And I don't think you realize this, but you have been teaching all along. And you're teaching us today. You're teaching students today. And it's such a pleasure to, first, it's such a pleasure for me to have you as my good friend, right? But so much more that you contribute so much to what I do with our Academy students. So again, thank you so much. And by the way, everybody will have access to this recording, and that if you do miss the live chat, go ahead and post the questions to your coaches. We'll try to get Chris to answer those in the future, okay? Thank you, everybody. Peace and love, and I will see you next week. Bye, Chris.
Bye. Best of luck to all of you. Take care.
Thank you.